All right, welcome in everybody to the first episode of Analytically Bold. I'm Jared Barsness,
I'm Joe Spinosa.
and we will be your two hosts. We're just going to do a quick introduction to the two of us for those of you who don't know us yet. So I am from Minnesota, born and raised. Been a Minnesota everything fan all my life. And just a diehard fan and a huge on sports. Football and baseball are big for me. I enjoy watching hockey and basketball as well. And yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on sports to share.
A little bit about me. I don't have the display that Jared has, so you can't tell my sports allegiance immediately, but I'm from the Boston area. Big Red Sox, Celtics, Patriots fan. But the reason why Jared and I are collabing, and the reason you probably know me on Twitter if you do, is my fandom for one Kirk Cousins, quarterback of the Vikings, former Washington Redskins, now Commanders, via football team quarterback. So I follow MLB, NFL, NBA pretty closely. I'm big on numbers, analytics, spreadsheets, all that stuff. So that's where I thought the name Analytically Bold came from, because we're both guys who like to look at numbers, look at strategy, all that stuff in terms of viewing the game. But we also have some hot takes, and we're not total sticks in the mud.
All right. Yeah. So our first topic that we're going to jump into right away is going to be the NFL draft. It's coming up this Thursday. What is that? April 28th?
Yes.
Yeah, the 28th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm unfortunately going to have to miss the first part of it, but I will be checking in on it.
Try not to spoil it for you.
Yeah. But yeah, so we're going to give our thoughts as far as like the draft in general goes, and then some bold predictions and discuss some moves with our teams, the Vikings and Patriots. So I don't know if you want to give some of your bold predictions right away.
So I think so. My bold prediction is going to start with the start of the draft. I predict there will be a trade up between Detroit and Jacksonville. I don't think Jacksonville is sold on Aiden Hutchinson. I think they want someone with a little higher ceiling than Hutch. I think whether that's Neal or Trayvon Walker, I still don't know. I know Neal was talked about as potentially being a number one overall pick maybe about a month ago, but that died down, and Trayvon Walker is the flavor of the month. So I think that Dan Campbell really wants his guy, Michigan man, Aiden Hutchinson. And I don't think it'll take that much of a move, maybe like a third rounder to go from 2 to 1. And yeah, that's a bold prediction I have, because usually don't see that, especially for a non-quarterback.
All right. So for my first bold prediction, I'd say that the Green Bay Packers they have 2 draft picks right now. They're going to trading up to jump and get one of those top wide receivers, probably one of those Ohio State guys. It's Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave up there. Losing Devontae Adams in the offseason with the trade and everything. They're in dire need for another wide receiver. Their number one guy there is probably Allen Lazard at this point. Which isn't going to get the job done for Aaron Rodgers. And they're definitely going to need a number one guy because Allen Lazard is not fit for that role.
I can see that happening. I've done some mocks where I have the Packers trading up. It'll be interesting because it's a pretty good wide receiver class. On the other hand, you don't know how these teams have these different players like their evaluation. Some, like PFF, for example, slid Treylon Burks all the way down their board to like the 40s.
Yeah.
Whereas some people have Treylon Burks as one of their top 3 receivers in this class. So you really don't know what's going to happen, but I could definitely see the Packers trading up, because I feel like Garrett Wilson especially, and Olave as well, they're kind of bust proof. So even if you like the ceiling of Jameson Williams, he's coming off the ACL. Treylon Burks has size and explosiveness, and people say he could play a Debo role, but they worry about his conditioning and that. So I think the Packers with their 2 first-round picks, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think Chris Olave is the surest bet in this draft as someone who you have to worry about the least about not actually panning out just because of his consistency at Ohio State and how great he's been in his time there.
and his route running ability, that's his, main trait. And I think that'll translate well. Another bold prediction I have regards my Patriots, and it's not bold saying that they will trade back. However, I think that their first selection will be either Leo Chenal, linebacker out of Wisconsin, or Tariq Woolen, who is a cornerback. And I forgot, I drew a blank on where Tariq Woolen goes or went to school, because some people have him in the third, some people have him in the late second. He's out of UT San Antonio. So this is a perfect like FBS guy. He's really toolsy. He's long, he's athletic. He has all the raw tools you could want from a corner. And I could just see Belichick shocking the world, whether it be at the end of round one or at the beginning of day two, just taking Tariq Woolen off the board and saying, I'm going to mold this kid into the next great corner and make him our Stephon Gilmore 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be, I mean, because the Patriots, after losing J.C. Jackson, obviously last year they didn't have Stephon Gilmore either, but just not having those two guys, there's a tandem that they've been used to for so long, or for a few years now. It's going to be different there. And if you want to draft someone defensively and have him be coached up, Bill Belichick the guy to do it. So yeah, I'd be totally on board with that. Next one. So you touched on your team. I'm going to touch on mine. I don't think that the Vikings are going to draft at 12. They're either going to move back or they're going to move up, depending just on how things are laying out. If they can, I think that they're going to try and move up first because they need to get Sauce or they got to get Derek Stingley. They have to get one of those two. I'm all in on cornerback in the first round right now. And Sauce and Stingley are, to me, the clear-cut 1 and 2, Sauce being number 1 and Stingley being 2. I don't think that they'll both make it there at this point to number 12. So with that said, I think that the Houston Texans might just go for Sauce Gardner. They need someone at every single spot right now. Really, literally every single spot. I mean, wide receiver is probably their last spot that they'd be going for if I had to guess. But again, I mean, they could take someone literally anywhere. But I'd say Sauce Gardner at this point would be the most likely pick for them. And then the New York Jets are one that scares me. So at 10, I don't think that they'll be taking Stingley at where are they at 4? But then
the Jets or the Giants?
Jets.
Yeah, Jets are at 4 and 10.
So they're at 4 and they're at 10. So I think that they're going. I don't think the Jets will take Stingley at 4 if Sauce Gardner is still there somehow. Then I think that they would take him, and if that is the case, then the Vikings might not even have to trade. But I don't think that Sauce Gardner will be there at that point. But then they'll have to jump the Jets and get past them at number 10 to be able to get Derek Stingley if that's the route that they're wanting to go. Otherwise, if those two are gone, I think that there's a trade back scenario where they pick up more draft capital and move back and get someone like Trent McDuffie later in the first round.
Yeah. Well, let's just go into Vikings draft talk because I'll just say Patriots fans, if there are any Patriots fans watching, you know how Bill rolls. He's not going to stick and pick. He's going to trade back. And if he does, he's going to take someone that we do not expect. But Leo Chenal will be a Patriot. We lost Dante Hightower, who's been part of our defense for a decade. He's a big, bruising, downhill linebacker. Leo Chenal, same build, same kind of aggressive style of play, hard-nosed football player. I think Belichick would really like him. So Leo Chenal's on my wish list for the Pats. And then if they do stick and pick, George Karlaftis, Andrew Booth, and McDuffie, who we're going to get into with the Vikings, who I'm not a fan of, but at 21 on the Patriots, I would take him because I think he plays Belichickian football. So that's my Patriots draft minute. But now to the Vikings. I know that because Jared and I, we were worried when we were going to start this podcast that one of the problems would be that we're agreeing too much because we have a very similar way of viewing things. But I am very much on board with drafting a wide receiver at number 12. If my two guys, which are Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams, are on the board, I'm not trading back if those two are on the board.
See, yeah, like you said, that's where we disagree. I think that the Vikings are really looking at this offseason. They're in a win right now, or they're in a win next year mode. It's like they got 2 years to go. And with
what makes you say that? When is Kwesi said we're building for now and for the future? I don't think any of their moves have locked them into anything.
I think that Zadarius Smith and then Patrick Peterson coming back for one more year to mentor someone, and to continue to play at the level that he's playing at. Just the shorter term deals that they've made to bring in these solid players. I think that it's kind of a win. I think it's a win now or win next year mode. And to when you have a solid 3 at wide receiver, when you have such a glaring need at a place like cornerback, or really just, defensively, and there's plenty of, you need another safety probably, and you need at least one more cornerback. And then even looking at the offensive line, you need someone or at least one guy on the inside, preferably at center, but a guard would be great too. I think that just wide receiver is not at the top of their list right now, or shouldn't.
The way I like to look at things in terms of building now and building for the future. And I'm a big best player available guy. So, and tie goes to need. So if Sauce, who's not going to falls, yes, I'm taking Sauce Gardner. Stingley looks less likely that he falls, but there's a chance. I would take Stingley as well. And then I would maybe go Kyle Hamilton over the wide receivers. But I'm talking, if those 3 guys are gone, I think that the drop-off after Stingley at corner is so great, whereas Wilson and Williams have a chance to come into the league. And Williams he's coming off the ACL, so it might take him more time. But I think he might have a higher ceiling. But Wilson especially has the chance to come in and be a top 20 receiver. And I don't see any other corner who I think comes in and is going to make the difference that you are looking for. Because in terms of the Patrick Peterson deal, it's the exact number that I said. I crunched my spreadsheets, 1 year, $4 million. That's not a move that makes me say the Vikings must win right now because we gave a 1 year, $4 million deal to Patrick Peterson. Zadarius Smith was essentially a 1 year, $4 million deal. And if he balls out, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Those 2 deals, they might be big names. They might be former all-pro players, but and especially if you're just going to talk about the money that they're given, we are not committed to them in a way that says we are hitching ourselves to these players. These players are cornerstones for our team, even this year. So I think that you take the best player available. And what really changed my mind was look at this offseason. And we're going to get into the offseason a little bit as well. But you look at what Devontae Adams got in terms of what Vegas gave up in a trade. Same thing with Miami and Tyreek Hill. You're giving up a first, a second, and then in Miami's case, a couple extra fourths, along with a $30 million a year deal. That's the market for receivers. On the other hand, J.C. Jackson and Teron Armstead, who I think are consensus top 5 players at corner and left tackle, got this pretty much the same amount per year as those two, as a wide receiver got combined. So you could get a top 5 corner and tackle for the same price as 1 star receiver. So I think that positionally, it's going through the roof. Thielen, do you trust him to stay healthy? He's going to be 32. He's not going to be here past next year. So 2023 would be his last year, I would assume, with the Vikings. Then Jefferson's going to be up. I like KJ. I don't trust him as wide receiver 2. I like ISM. I don't trust him as wide receiver 3. So if Sauce, Stingley, Hamilton off the board, you have a chance to get a guy who is bust-proof and can really elevate this offense, I say you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you get to that point where those three are off the board, to me, that's a trade back scenario where you try and move back. And if you can't move back, then maybe it forces your hand to do that if there's no one left that is of that kind of value to you, like on the offensive line. And even I'm usually opposed to drafting an interior offensive lineman that high unless it's someone like Quentin Nelson, which is once in a generation kind of guy. Yeah, I mean, I think that the only way that I'm on board with that is if those three are gone and there is just you just can't reasonably trade back with somebody and get someone like Trent McDuffie.
I'm out on McDuffie, and the reason why is that he's so small, and he measured at the 4th percentile for arm length. And I'm not someone who is totally obsessed with the raw athletic scores, the measurables, but I think that adequate arm length is a necessity to play outside corner in the NFL, because I'm not drafting a slot guy in the first round. It's just bad business, because you can get Chandon Sullivan, who the Vikings got, who I wanted them to get for $1.75 million to play slot corner at a high level or a good level. We also have Cam Bynum if we choose to go safety. He can play slot corner. Slot corner you can piece together. So I'm out on McDuffie. I would say Andrew Booth would be the guy if we were to trade down, but I don't know how much I trust Booth to the extent where Garrett Wilson's staring you in the face at 12. You're getting offered an extra 3rd round pick from the Chargers because they want to move up. So is taking Booth and then whoever you get at 79, is that worth moving on from a guy? If you're as high on Wilson as I am, a guy that you believe walks in and day one as a top 20 receiver and has the potential to be Stephon Diggs, Odell Beckham Jr. I'm not doing that. I can't, because I don't trust Booth, McDuffie, or Elam enough to pass on that type of player at a premium position, because wide receiver is still premium. It's not a position of need right now, but it's still a premium position.
All right, so we're going to move into our all off-season teams that we threw together. We each threw together a 22-man team of people who were either traded for or signed as a free agent in the off-season here. So I'll just run through my team real quick. So at quarterback, I have Russell Wilson traded from the Seattle Seahawks to the Denver Broncos. He's always had people to throw to in Seattle, but he's never had anyone to protect him. And his biggest strength has been his mobility. And if it was most other quarterbacks back there, they probably wouldn't have survived the way that he did in Seattle. But even he struggled. He just never had a good offensive line in front of him. And hopefully Denver will be able to provide that for him along with the rest of the pieces around him. I think he's in a better situation now than he was before, though. And then running back, I had Cordero Patterson, the former Viking, and turned lots of different teams. And then now
Patriot.
Yep.
Super Bowl champion.
Raider, and now Falcon. I don't think there was anywhere in between that. But yeah, so he's a Falcon now. He was Falcon last year. He's a Falcon again. 2-year contract. It wasn't bad at all. I think it was like $5 million a year or something like that. For a wide receiver / running back hybrid, which we saw last year. Him and Deebo Samuel made that position kind of a premium. And now we see that Deebo Samuel doesn't want to play that anymore. So we really only have one guy in the league right now in Cordero Patterson who will play that spot. And he's very valuable at that spot and has finally really he's shown his true value as not just a return man, but also a offensive weapon as a receiver and a running back. His biggest problem when he played for the Vikings was the fact that he just couldn't run the routes. And so the Falcons did a good job of figuring out a good spot for him being a hybrid. Real quick, Devontae Adams, wide receiver, obviously one of the best receivers in the league. I think if anyone's going to be paid as high as him, it makes sense for it to be Devontae Adams. Tyreek Hill, you can make an argument that he's overpaid, and I can see both sides of the coin for that. But Tua needs something to maybe save him. You know, he's not good. I don't think. I think Tua's pretty bad, actually. So we'll see if Tyreek can bring out the best in Tua, but I mean, who knows with that guy. And then Amari Cooper getting traded to the Browns. I think that if Deshaun Watson actually ends up being able to play, him and Amari Cooper are going to be a really, really strong duo up there in Cleveland. Tight end, I put down the former Viking Tyler Conklin. And I think that overall, just value in general, considering how he filled in for the Vikings on such a short notice, really, as the tight end one. And I think that just the value that he brings as just a receiver and a blocker is going to be great for the Jets. Left tackle, I put down Teron Armstead, one of the best left tackles in the league. Not a whole lot to say on that. He deserves every penny that he's getting paid. Austin Corbett, again, one of the higher tier guards, in my opinion, in the league. He's been pretty consistently good as he was on the Rams. So a big signing this offseason. Ted Karras, another solid. There wasn't a whole lot of centers that actually moved around this offseason, but Ted Karras was definitely overall in value and everything the best signing to me. And then Billy Turner was a rotational guy, someone who just kind of filled in when the Packers needed him to, and he did a really, really good job. And I think he's getting paid just over $1 million with the Broncos this year, which to me is ridiculous. I think he deserves to get a bit more than that, and definitely someone who should fill in. He should start right away, probably in Denver, blocking for Russell Wilson. And then lastly, on the offense, I'll go with Lyle Collins, who was not happy anymore in Dallas, and he ended up getting released. And I think he landed in Denver as well. So another piece to protect.
I think Lyle Collins is in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, you're right. Yep. So Cincinnati, yeah. But yeah, he just another solid signing for Joe Burrow, who we saw almost died in the Super Bowl. So
yeah, because they added Karras as well, and they added Alex Kappa from Tampa,
yeah.
which is going to give Burrow some much needed protection. Now, I'll go to my offensive picks. There's some overlap, but we got some different kind of views on some of these guys. I went with Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I know that there are a lot of question marks regarding his status, but we have never seen someone at his level, at his age, become available in NFL history, probably. He is a top 5 to 7 quarterback when he's on the field. He's only 26 years old, and he can do it all. So the potential there with that Cleveland team, you just can't pass that up. And I love Russell Wilson as much as the next guy, but he's 34. Denver still gave up 2 first-rounders and I believe 2 seconds plus Shelby Harris. So it's not like they got him for much less than Cleveland got Deshaun Watson for. And then there's the contract. But either way, when you get a guy who, as long as even if he just serves a suspension, but you get him on your team for the next decade, that is game-changing, because those quarterbacks don't come along every so often. It's very rare. And I think we've been kind of spoiled with lots of good quarterbacks entering the league. But I think this draft class is going to show great quarterbacks do not enter the league every year or two. You're not going to have drafts that feature Mahomes and Watson, and then Burrow and Herbert, and the litany of really good quarterbacks who have entered the league over the past 4 or 5 years. Then at running back, I got Rashad Penny. He's a former first-round pick, and he really popped off the last 6 games, averaged over 6 yards per carry, still had over 700 yards. If he is healthy, he is one of the most dynamic runners in the league. And I'm not big on running backs, but Rashad Penny is special when he has the ball. Receiver, 1, Devontae Adams. We got it. Jared covered that. One of the best receivers in football, if not the best. And then my next 2 receivers, I got Devontae Parker, because the Patriots gave up a 3rd rounder for him. But considering this wide receiver market, he's on a 2-year, $6 million per year deal. That's a steal for a guy who I think is still a very high-end number 2 receiver. And the Patriots also got a 5th back. So and they traded with the division rival, so you have to pay that tax. But considering his contract, the size, the ball skills, I have Devontae Parker, and then I have DJ Chark, who Detroit, I believe it was Detroit, signed out of Jacksonville.
Yep,
Former
Detroit.
1,000-yard receiver. He's 6'4", still only 25 years old. He's coming off an injury, and he signed a 1-year, $10 million deal. How can you look at Christian Kirk, who I like? I think Christian Kirk's a really good player, and people like to crap on him, and I get it. But DJ Chark has very high ceiling, and on a 1-year deal, I think that's one of the best values. So that's my wide receiver 3. At tight end, Tyler Conklin, former Viking. When Irv Smith went down in the preseason, Conklin stepped up, and he was fantastic as an all-around tight end. He's big, he's physical. I think he adds some spunk to your locker room as well. So really good all-around tight end. Didn't break the bank on him. Good signing by the Jets. Then we go to the offensive line. Teron Armstead, enough said, all-pro tackle, and got less than I would have thought. Then Shaq Mason at one of the guard spots, stole him from the Patriots. Don't want to get into that because I'm going to get even more pissed at Belichick. I really think that if you've ever seen like sports movies, you have the old coach who was always hard on a player, really gave him a hard time, busted his chops, but then at the end it's like a Sour Patch Kid. That was Belichick right now with Brady. He saw that Marpet retired, Alex Kappa left, so he's like, oh, here's your old buddy Shaq Mason. Only give us a 5th rounder for him. And he's on a decent contract too. So that's a no-brainer for me because I think he's a top 5 guard. Then Ted Karras as well, another Patriot who I'm upset we lost, but really versatile, can play all of the interior spots, can pass protect, can run block. I'm a big Ted Karras fan. Then on the other side, Brandon Sheriff, all-pro guard, watched Kirk with him in Washington. Maybe a little bit overpaid because he's a guard, but if you're a team that has money to spend like Jacksonville does, there's no price you can really put on protecting Trevor Lawrence. So I think that was still a very good signing for them. And then Trent Brown on the Patriots. He is, I think, the biggest man in the NFL, 6'8", 6'9", 380 pounds, stone wall and pass protection. He has trouble with guys who are a little bit more bendy, obviously, because he's so big. But in the years he's been with New England, he's fantastic. And he signed for under $10 million a year. He's still in his late 20s. So I think that's great value signing on the O-line.
Yeah, Trent Brown's the biggest guy in the league up until this year when Daniel Fa'alele out of the University of Minnesota breaks into the league at, what is he? He's like, I think he's 6'9", 380 or 390.
Did you ever encounter him?
No, but I encountered one of the other offensive linemen, Blaze Andrews, and he's a Goliath next to me, which I'm not a big person, but he's like a Goliath next to me, and he's tiny next to Daniel Fa'alele, so I can only imagine how massive that man is. Yeah, he's here it says he's 6'9", 379.
And
big guy.
Who's the other fella?
Out of Australia, Blaze Andrews. Blaise, and then Andrews. It should pop up when you put.
I see him.
Yeah, big guy. He's a Minnesota native too, but yeah, big. He's large.
It's funny because at BU, Boston University, where my alma mater, hockey's our sport. So I'm same size or oftentimes bigger than a lot of the hockey players, at least height-wise. And I'm not the tallest guy, but yeah, it's definitely different compared to these 6'5", 6'9" mammoths.
Yeah. Well, hockey's supposed to be our sport too, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
BU's not really a big sports school otherwise.
Yeah.
So you want to go to your defense?
Yeah, let's hop into the defense here. So we did it. So I went with just to kind of switch it up a little bit. Joe went with a 3-4 defense. I did a 4-3, but I mean, it's you'll get the same stuff out of it. So I'll start with my edge defenders. I went with Matt Ioannidis out of Washington. They've always had a really solid. I shouldn't say always, but they've had a really solid defensive line there. And Matt Ioannidis, in my opinion, whenever I've watched them, he didn't get used as much as I think that he had too many people in front of him and that were just slightly better than him. And he's going to hopefully be a full-time starter down in Carolina, which I imagine he would be. I can't imagine there's anyone who's going to be beating him out there, but we'll see just how good he is. But we saw with how limited playing time, how well he did over in Washington. And then Chandler Jones, I mean, there's really not a whole lot to be said there. He's Chandler Jones. He's consistently one of the best edge rushers in the league, always putting up massive numbers for sacks and pressures and everything. Just one of the best players in the NFL right now. Then up the middle, I got Jonathan Hankins, who played for New Orleans, and he was always pretty decent, but they can't remember who he signed with, but they got a crazy deal for him. It was just over $1 million for Jonathan Hankins, which I think is a bit
ridiculous. He signed with the Raiders as well.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So
that's going to be a good line for them with Chandler Jones, Hankins, and they re-signed Max Crosby.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just a solid up the middle guy. I'm sorry, he didn't play for New Orleans. He played for the Giants. I was thinking of someone else, but anyways, then also up the middle, Sebastian Joseph Day. We saw how good Michael Brockers was next to Aaron Donald, and then he went to Detroit and he was still good. I don't think there's any reason to think that Sebastian Joseph Day is going to be any different when he moves with his new team. I mean, we saw him all season long. Again, obviously playing next to Aaron Donald is a game changer because Aaron Donald commands 2 or 3 blockers every time. But I think it'll be interesting to see how he does without a guy like that next to him. And I think he'll do pretty well without an Aaron Donald next to him. And then moving into the linebackers now. I got Zadarius Smith. So going to the Vikings, super exciting signing for them there. We saw him plenty with the Packers, unfortunately. He always wreaked havoc on the Vikings offensive line, constantly putting up big numbers. He struggled with injury this past season, but if he comes back and is healthy, he'll be probably one of the highest values of this offseason. He's getting $14 million, I think, right now, which for a top-tier edge rusher, if he returns to that level of play that he had played at prior to last year, and even when he was back last year, then the Vikings are going to be getting a great player out of Zadarius Smith there. And then Leighton Vander Esch, I remember when he played for BYU and everything, and waiting for him in the draft. And I've always thought he was a pretty solid player, but obviously Dallas, he didn't show out as much as they may have liked him to. But they're giving him another chance, I guess, bring him back. I think his is a pretty low deal too, which is why I have him up here, just because it's such a low deal. I think it's overall a high value deal for someone who is capable of playing at the level that he is, and then at such a low price. And then Miles Jack is someone who I had kind of hoped that the Vikings were going to actually end up taking in that draft. I think they took Dalvin Cook before him, but it was kind of a between Jack and Cook kind of thing. And either way, I mean, they will come out on top. At this point, I kind of wish that they would have taken Miles Jack. Just hindsight's 2020, obviously, but they end up paying Dalvin Cook, which I'm totally opposed to. Just not a fan of paying running backs at all. And then they would still have a great combo of Kendricks and Jack in the linebacker core there. But yeah, he moved on. I think they got a great value out of him. I think it's $8 million a year or so. So yeah, another pretty high level linebacker who I think the team got a pretty good price out of him. I think it was, I don't want to say it wrong. I want to say it's Baltimore though.
What, Miles Jack? That
Oh,
was
it's
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Okay. Um, yeah. And then J.C. Jackson, obviously, again, not a whole lot to say there. He's J.C. Jackson, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. A big loss for New England for sure. But I think he'll excel anywhere he plays. It's hard to see him being a bust signing. One of the best cornerbacks in the league. Not a whole lot to worry about there. And I might show my bias a little bit here, but I'm going with Patrick Peterson for the other one. I mean, you go $4 million. You look at the way that he played last year. I think he did pretty well last year, and at $4 million for a veteran cornerback who's going to be able to mentor more Cam Dantzler, and then hopefully their first round cornerback that they hopefully are able to draft. It will be a great veteran to have on the team to help mentor those guys and continue to play at a relatively high level. Marcus May is my free safety. Played with the Jets, always was in a tough position. You're always in a tough position when you play for the New York Jets. But pretty much he's been a top safety in the league for quite some time now. It's just been overshadowed by the rest of the team and just how bad they've been. But if you actually watch the guy play, he's a really, really good safety, and he deserves to be paid top safety money, and just have a nice contract there. And then Keanu Neal is someone who I've always liked. Going back, we talked about this a little bit before the show, but Keanu Neal back in Atlanta, again, misused. They put him at linebacker a lot, which I feel like he just excels at safety more. And he's a guy I really enjoy watching. He's battled with injuries a lot throughout his career, but if he can stay healthy and be used correctly and play at that high level that he's been capable of playing at, and he's shown that he can play at, I think it'll be a great signing from this offseason.
Yeah, there were a lot of high value signings. I'll try to go quickly across my my offseason team. On the line, I got Chandler Jones, horrible Harry Phillips at D tackle, and Calais Campbell. Jones and Calais Campbell, two totally different types of players, but they both age like fine wine. I think that having beef up front with Campbell and Harrison Phillips would allow in this hypothetical team Chandler Jones to play as a free edge rusher or play with his hand in the dirt, but on the end because you can handle the run. And Chandler Jones is a great run defender. Then on the edges, I have Khalil Mack and Von Miller, two of the best players of the last decade. Again, I know they got a lot of money, and in Mack's case, the Chargers gave up a second-round pick, but the ceiling of those guys, if they can, and Von Miller showed he could still play. You really can't go wrong with those guys. Then with the linebackers, Bobby Wagner and Jordan Hicks. I think Wagner has slowed down a little bit, but in terms of linebackers, he's still top 5. And at the $10 million a year range, it's really not a bad deal. And it's a little bit long, but they're the Rams, so who cares? Because they don't care about 5 years from now. And then with Jordan Hicks, I actually like him more than Miles Jack. I think he's a lower ceiling player, but I think that he could be on the field for you every snap. He will not make any mistakes. And locking him in as a starter for a 2-year deal at 11-12 million was huge win. Then at the corners, J.C. Jackson, again, wish the Patriots kept him, but that's Bill. And then I have Ahkello Witherspoon, who re-signed with the Steelers. And he was it was him and J.C. Jackson were actually graded as the top man cover corners. And the only knock against Witherspoon is his durability. But when he's on the field, he is a lockdown corner. He's long. He had a couple interceptions against the Vikings this year on Thursday Night Football. So really don't think you can go wrong with him. I'm a huge fan. Then with the safeties, got Quandre Diggs in the back because he's one of the best there is and super solid. Then I got Jordan Whitehead, who signed for 2 years, $14 million, which I think is immense value for the Jets. People were saying he was going to get 3 years, 40, and he's been part of that Bucs defense, which has been really good for the past couple of years. And he's still really young, only 25. So that's my all off-season defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I was at that Steelers and Vikings game. It was a good one. It was exciting.
Did you stay the entire time?
I did stay the whole time. Yep. I
No.
oh yeah, I was getting worked up. But yeah, and then just real quick, Jordan Hicks. Obviously, I like the Vikings, so I'll say something about him real quick. I was super excited because even back when he was with the Eagles, especially, I've always just kind of followed along with him. He's always been pretty solid. So I think, let's see, I think it was 10 million 2 years. I could be, you could have been right too, but it's something like 10 to 12 million, something like that. So I think it's a great value, especially after losing someone like Anthony Barr, to get another linebacker next to Eric Kendricks. But now let's hop into, we're going to talk about some remaining free agents. So we're each going to rattle off a few free agents that are still left and just kind of talk about what kind of value they could bring to a team that may end up signing them, because there's all these players will end up signing somewhere at some point here soon. So I'll start out. I'll touch on Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, everyone knows him. Love him or hate him, he's really good. Spent time with the Giants. Obviously, everyone remembers the one-handed catch and everything. That's what made him what he is now. Or, well, I shouldn't say it, but that's what made his name such a household name at that time, was that one-handed catch, because you didn't see that kind of stuff happening in the NFL, especially him arching his back and reaching for that the way he did. It was such a incredible catch to see. And so that's kind of how he broke out his name in the NFL. And then his time with the Cleveland Browns, obviously got traded from there last year after not being too happy there. And Baker Mayfield, I think, was a lot to blame there. But anyways, he moved on to the Rams, where he did all right. I mean, he wasn't at the level that we would expect Odell Beckham to be at, but he did pretty well, given the situation where he hadn't seen a whole lot of attention over in Cleveland, and then he got to move on to the Rams, where he ultimately won the Super Bowl with them. So yeah, I think that will be a great player. He'll probably command a lot of money, just because he is capable of being like a top 10 receiver. And we're seeing how much receivers are getting paid right now. I mean, we saw Christian Kirk get paid $18 million. I don't think there's a single person in this world who has a single brain cell that is going to say that Christian Kirk is a top 10 receiver. So yeah, he'll command money, but someone's definitely going to end up getting a great player out of him at some point here.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on you there, because I don't think Odell is what he was. He's getting a second ACL surgery in, I think, as many years. Yeah, I don't think he'll ever be a top 10 receiver again.
Yeah, that's fair. Definitely considering the injury and everything. I think it'll be good
even
to
in
see.
Cleveland, he was not great. He was not great in Cleveland.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think Baker Mayfield was the issue in Cleveland. But
You really think that Baker Mayfield was that bad?
I've never liked Baker Mayfield.
I'm not a Baker Mayfield guy either, but I think that he gets too much flack. I don't think that there are garbage quarterbacks in the NFL. Like, there are Sam Darnold.
Oh, absolutely.
There are Jameis Winston back in 2019 when he threw 30 picks.
Yeah.
I think that Baker's better than Jimmy G. I think that Baker, at his best, he can be a top 15 quarterback. So I'm not going to let Odell off the hook that easily.
I'm going to jump down a Jimmy G rabbit hole real quick. I think that there are probably 32 quarterbacks who can do what Jimmy Garoppolo does, where he averages probably 5 yards per attempt, or 5 yard, like, net yards. Yeah. I mean, he's not asked much. I think he gets more credit than he deserves, and I think that it's just the offense playing to his skill set. Which, I mean, right, good for them. I mean, he's not as good as people think he is. I don't think.
I agree, and I think that a lot of the league's catching on to that. I just wanted to say, I think that Odell is a lot more name, especially now coming off 2 ACL surgeries. He's still good. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that I wouldn't give him more than a 2-year deal, and then you can
absolutely.
talk about compensation. I'm going to move on to another one of his former teammates, Jarvis Landry, who I loved in Miami, and he is a very good possession receiver, great hands, solid route runner. There's reports saying that he wanted $20 million a year, but he's not getting that. He's not getting close to that. Green Bay is a team that I have my eyes on, depending on how the draft goes. If let's just say they can't trade up and the draft just goes bonkers with receivers, and you got 6 guys going before 22, and the value is too good, and they can't and they don't draft like a Jahan Dotson and Pickens and Burks, and all those guys are gone. And then your best receiver that you take is John Mitchie with the 59th pick. I could see them going hard after Jarvis Landry, but I think that he's still a very solid wide receiver too. They're saying could go back to Cleveland. Who knows? Because once they move on from Baker, because I don't think they'll have to cut him. I think that they can trade him, even if it's only for a 4th round pick. They get off, that's $18 million off the books. They could easily bring in whoever they want. Bring back Jarvis Landry. You got Donovan Peoples-Jones, Mari Cooper. It's not a bad wide receiving core. So I would definitely keep my name on Jarvis Landry, and I think that he's the best receiving option of it, all things considered. Health, what it'll cost, all that. I'm big on Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, I think I would agree that he's probably the best remaining. My thing with Odell is just the ceiling that we've seen.
The ceiling is higher.
But I'd say, overall, if you want your safest bet with Jarvis Landry right now. All right, and then let's stay on the offensive side. We'll move to the offensive line. I'm gonna go with Dwayne Brown, he's a left tackle. He's always been good. His time in Houston, when he was the only offensive lineman there who was like worth anything, and good for him, he got out of there. He needed a better situation, and then he got traded to another team, the Seattle Seahawks, who also made him pretty much the only worthwhile offensive lineman there. So a team will be getting a really good left tackle out of him. Left tackle, unless you have a lefty quarterback, the most valuable position on the offensive line. So I can imagine he will be, I don't know, he's older now. It'll be a short-term deal.
He's pushing 40.
Yeah, he'll be it'll be a short-term deal, obviously, with his age and everything. But someone's going to be able to, because he's still a good offensive lineman. He's still a great left tackle, and someone's going to be getting. He reminds me of an Andrew Whitworth, not as good, obviously, but he reminds me of the Andrew Whitworth where he's still at his age playing at such a high level. It's just the whole, how much longer does he want to play? But he's a great left tackle. That team is going to get a great player out of him at some point.
Yeah, I agree. We're seeing tackles. Jason Peters also played really well, and he's 40. Yeah, I looked up. Brown's 36, going to be 30. Yeah,
I did not realize he was that old.
He's going to be 37 in August. Yeah, but still, we saw Whitworth play till 40. Jason Peters play till 40. So on a 1-year, like $12 million deal, I think that he is great tackle for hire.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at like how much a left tackle is worth, I mean, and just how important that position is, protecting your quarterback's blind side, unless you're Tua, which I mean, I don't think there's any other lefty other than Tua that's starting in the league right now. So there's a bunch of teams out there that could use a left tackle like him.
Yeah. I'll go to a guy that Vikings fans are clamoring for, and that's J.C. Tretter. He's been one of the best centers in the league for the past 5 years. I'll just say that there's reports that he didn't practice at all because his knees are so bad that he would just really just grit it out during the games. And you got to remember, the Vikings GM, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, came from Cleveland. So he has a better idea about J.C. Tretter, where he is at this point in his career, how his knees are, how his medicals are, than any armchair analyst on Twitter could imagine. So I know that Vikings fans see Garrett Bradbury, especially with that picture next to, you'd have thought it was one of us between Kyle Rudolph and Brian O'Neill. He looks so small, but as much as we see that and we see Bradbury just getting his ass blown up, if Kwesi knows that J.C. Tretter's knees are not there and he is not worth $7-8 million anymore, because Cleveland has money and Cleveland had money. There was no reason for Cleveland to cut JC Tretter if they felt that he was still at his peak level, because they traded for Amari Cooper. They could have they could still restructure him. It's very easy to restructure. See the way they structured the Deshaun Watson deal. Once they move on from Baker, that's $18 million. They could have easily found a way to keep JC Tretter if they felt that he was a linchpin at center and can continue to be what he's been. They don't see it. And I think the fact that we've heard no rumblings outside of fan speculation that the Vikings are after him shows that, unfortunately, his knees might be shot. So that's my thoughts on Tretter. And we're just going to have to trust Kwesi on this one, because he knows way more than we do about JC Tretter specifically.
Yeah, definitely. If there's anyone in the league outside of the Browns who's gonna be able to have a good insight on that, it's gonna be him. So, yeah, I think if you see, because like I said before, these guys are all gonna be signing with someone before the end of the offseason. I think Tretter is the one guy who, obviously, talked about the knees and everything. There's a decent chance maybe he chooses, maybe I should just hang it up just because of the whole knee situation. And then one more thing on him, just the president of the NFLPA. He's obviously a great guy and a great locker room guy. So just someone that you would like to have around in your locker room and on your team. So now let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball. We'll talk about Akeem Hicks, the longtime Chicago Bear. He played for the Saints before that.
Patriots.
He did play for the Patriots. And so, yeah, Vikings fans know him all too well. Again, another guy who, along with Zadarius Smith, we talked about earlier, seemed to terrorize the Vikings like crazy every single game they played. And it was always a relief. I think this past year we got a game without him, and it was really nice to not have to deal with that guy. But another older guy, and I think that's kind of a theme that we're seeing here. Tretter, Dwayne Brown, Akeem Hicks, all three up in age there, and so it's taken a little bit more time for them to get signed. But someone that you could just plug and play. He can start on a lot of teams right now, up the middle. And I know he started out as kind of an edge guy, and you can put him on the edge or in the middle, but he's big enough now to where you probably want him up the middle. But yeah,
he can play 3 technique, 5 technique.
Yep.
Yeah,
he's a great pass rusher up the middle, and obviously, again, Vikings fans know that all too well. So yeah, just a big body that belongs on a team this upcoming season.
Yeah, and we'll wrap up this segment. Talk about probably, I would say, the biggest name on defense, Honey Badger. I think he's still only 29, but it feels like he's a lot older than that. Went to the Chiefs, was a part of that Super Bowl winning defense. I like him, but as you can see, and as the draft's coming along, Kyle Hamilton's stock falling. Safeties just aren't valued as highly as people think. And you also saw that with Jordan Whitehead, his signing, Keanu Neal, with a lot of these value guys at safety. And Justin Reed signed with KC. And a report came out that he would have taken the same deal as Justin Reed. And I know he's about 4 or 5 years older, but he's a much better player. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the Honey Badger. He's healthy. He's good. I know he had some character questions before, but it seems like he's still like a really good locker room guy that, you hate to play against him, but you love to go to war with him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the money's kind of drying out. And does he take a 1-year deal at his age? Does he try to secure a 3-year deal, even if it is for only $30 million, which would be considerably less because people projected him at 3 years, 45, 50. So does he take the long-term deal to secure the bag one last time, or does he say, screw it, I'll take a 1-year deal, $9-10 million, pay me, and then I'm going to hit the market again one last time when the cap goes up and teams have more money? It'll be really interesting. Does he go back to KC? Who is going to give him that? It's really going to be quite the see how that unfolds, because I feel like he and Odell are very similar in terms of high profile players, really good, but different sides of the ball.
Yeah. I think, and you see a lot at this point, players who make it this far are usually stuck to going with 1 or 2 year deals. You see, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney, who again, I'm not going to dive into him, but he's another guy that we've seen over the past couple of years who is a solid player, but he's been taking these small deals just because teams just don't seem to want him for a long period of time and they don't want to pay him a lot of money. Um, but yeah, so you see a lot of short-term deals with those kind of guys.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna jump into some questions from people on Twitter. So I'll start out with one. So this one is coming in from Mikhail Skolachev. It's at SK0L ACHEV, so Skolachev with a 0 instead of an O. But the question is, and we'll both answer this, a new expansion team in the NFL drops and you are in charge. What are you naming it and where are you putting it? Let's see. So I can think of a handful of cities that could go for a NFL team right now. I'd say San Antonio would be one of them. It's such a giant area and they only have one professional sports team with the Spurs. After that, I'd say St. Louis. I think putting a team back in St. Louis isn't a horrible idea. I think that, I mean, you saw with the XFL when the Battlehawks were there. I mean, people were showing out and showing love for that, the St. Louis Battlehawks. And then I'd say probably Kentucky, like Louisville, Kentucky, something like that. I mean, people are crazy about sports there, but I'd say I'm gonna go with St. Louis. And a name for them, man. I love the Battlehawks, but obviously that's not an option. I'd say I think like St. Louis Stallions has a nice ring to it, except I'd say St. Louis Stallions. You got the Broncos, so it's kind of two horses, but Stallions has a nice ring to it. Yeah, I'd say the St. Louis Stallions.
So this question was kind of sprung on us. So I got to rack the brain, got to get the creative juices flowing, the wheels, so they get the hamster wheel in the brain going. I'm thinking like Utah, like Salt Lake City. It's BYU, big football school. You have Steve Young, then you have now Zach Wilson in the league. Low key football, big football state. They only have one team, and it's a pretty big major metropolitan area. I feel like they'd rally behind it. Another one would be Oklahoma City. Just give some more representation of the Midwest. I feel like because there's so much. There's tons of teams on the East Coast, and then the Great Lakes region. Obviously, those are areas. So I like I like the. I'm gonna go with Salt Lake City, and I'm gonna call them. Ooh, do I want to go Utah or do I want to go Salt Lake City? Now that's the
Well, the AAF had the Salt Lake City Stallions. Now that I'm thinking about it, which St. Louis, that's probably where the Stallions came from for me. But
I'm gonna go with the Salt Lake City. I'm gonna say missionaries.
Missionary.
The Mormon missionaries.
That's good.
The Salt Lake City missionaries.
That's good. All right.
That's my team. Shout out to the Mormons, man. Love it.
All right. And then I got another question here. This is from Elbow Bread at Elbow Bread 1 on Twitter. So Elbow Bread asks, why should we draft Sam Howell, and will he ever win or will we ever win a Super Bowl? And why I'm going to go ahead and say that he's talking about the Vikings. Yes, because his Twitter bio says CEO of Vikings Twitter. So, should we draft Sam Howell? So this is kind of a meme that's happening right now, which I don't know.
Was it Forrester who started it?
Yes. Yep. So Forrester started it. If you're on Twitter, Vikings, you know who he is. Funny guy. But yeah, so Sam Howell, I mean, if Sam Howell is there in like the third round, I'm not opposed to taking Sam Howell. Because I mean, he's shown how good he can be when he was with North Carolina. Last year, he sucked. Like he was really bad, but before that he showed he could be a good quarterback and played really well. So I think if he's there in like the third or fourth round, I think we should take him. I would not be upset by that. I think he's better than Kellen Mond. I'd be happier with him than Kellen Mond. And will we ever win a Super Bowl? I hope so. I don't know what else to say other than that, because at this point, I don't know. I hope so.
Well, I'll say after Rick Spielman botched the 64th overall pick on a quarterback in Kellen Mond, which was stupid, could have got Kirk more help. You're not doing Vikings don't have a fourth rounder. No quarterback under any circumstances. This draft is too deep. You can get a Cole Strange, Dylan Parham, Jamari Salyer. I like Cam Jurgens. A lot of good offensive linemen, a lot of good interior offensive linemen that you can get in the third round. You're not drafting a quarterback. And will the Vikings win a Super Bowl? Because Patriots have won many Super Bowls. Patriots will win again. The Vikings, as long as Kirk Cousins is their quarterback, that's their window, because they will be cursed forever if they move on from Kirk. They will be a cursed franchise. So within the next 5 years, Kirk Cousins will be the Vikings quarterback for the next 5 years. That's why you don't take another quarterback in the first 5 rounds. Kirk Cousins will be the Vikings quarterback for the next 5 years. And within the next 5 years, the Minnesota Vikings will be Super Bowl champions, led by Super Bowl MVP Kirk Daniel Cousins. To quote Phil Mackey, write that down.
God, I hope you're right. Okay, so since we're not going to be putting anything else out before the draft, I just have to get this out of the way right now. I need the Vikings to get Bailey Zappi in some way. I need Bailey Zappi on my favorite football team. I would take Bailey Zappi over Sam Howell. Okay. My biggest draft crush, Bailey Zappi. I just have to throw that out there.
I like
the
him
draft
too.
is coming up. I have been a Bailey Zappi fan since he played for Houston Baptist. So, and I've been following him. I watched all his games. I'm a huge Bailey Zappi's my guy.
Well, it's not taking Kirk's job. He can be Kirk's clipboard holder.
He could be. I'll take him as a backup. I'd feel okay about Bailey Zappi if the indestructible Kirk Cousins ever goes down. Yeah, right. Knock on wood. All right.
I got a question from Clapped Dan. Dan.
Everyone loves Clap Dan.
Yes, we do. And he asks, between O-line, receiving play, run game, scheme / play calling, what do you think is most important for a QB's success?
You want this, or you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Running backs don't matter. I just want to get that out of the way. I think that scheme and play calling. So here's how I'll say it, is that you need an O-line. So if you're talking just for like adequate play, like you need the O-line. So 9 times out of 10, I would go there. However, when you have an innovative genius like a Shanahan or a McVay or someone like that, that guy can elevate Jimmy G and a Jared Goff, who made back-to-back Super Bowls, can take them and make them look a lot better. So I would lean towards saying line play, but if you have a coach who can implement a scheme that is that far and away above the rest of the league, I would say that's where you go with scheme. But if you have a good enough quarterback, I would go with O-line. So I'm gonna stick and pick with O-line, because I'm gonna look at quarterbacks that I've had, which is Kirk Cousins, Tom Brady, and I think that an adequate scheme but a good O-line would just makes them great.
Yeah. If I have to pick one, I would say I'd put O-line at 2, but I'm gonna put scheme and play calling at 1. I mean, we saw back in 2018 with John DeFilippo just how awful the Vikings offense overall looked, just because the guy had no idea. He clearly had no idea what he was doing. It was the worst play calling that I've ever seen. And so I think that, like you said, you make a guy like Jared Goff, who like we know now is not that good of a quarterback, but you make him look like one of the best in the league, like Sean McVay did, and same thing that is being done in San Francisco there with Jimmy G. The scheming is a big deal, and you can always I think you can, because you're working with NFL level offensive linemen all the time, usually, unless you're the Vikings. You have Drew Samia starting at guard, but I think you can always scheme around your weaknesses, and you can play against your weaknesses. I think that'd be the right way to say that, and be able to scheme around that and call the plays to where your weaknesses don't show as glaringly as they are.
All right, yeah. And then we will go to TJ, my guy, who asks the final question and how we'll end our inaugural episode. We always hear about the wide receivers, corners, edges, and guards that the Vikings should draft with the first 3 rounds. But what about players in positions such as linebackers, tight ends, or safeties? Who do you think they should draft, and why within the first 3 rounds at those positions?
All right. Yeah. I'll start this one. So I think, so obviously you have Hamilton there, Kyle Hamilton, a safety. I think that a safety can be really valuable just because you can have them come down. I mean, depending on who it is, like you see like Harrison Smith, he can play in the box almost as like a linebacker. So he can fill in that kind of a linebacker role if necessary. I know we saw that with like Keanu O'Neal, which he ended up being turned into a strictly linebacker, which I think is the wrong move for a safety. But I'd say out of those 3, right now for the Vikings, I would say that a safety would be the most crucial, given the value that there is with like Kyle Hamilton. And then I'd say linebacker and then tight end for the Vikings. So yeah, I'd say for the Vikings would be safety, linebacker, and then tight end. And yeah, for who they should draft, I'd say Kyle Hamilton's probably at the top of that list between all those people.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, just to answer like part of the questions, they're not talked about because they're not premium positions, and they're guys who you can find value later in the draft, and it's a lot easier to fill. Now, I think that you do draft a guy at those positions if the talent differential is clearly different. So Kyle Hamilton, I think if you're just talking pure football players, widely regarded the best player in the draft. He falls to 12. The Vikings have a big enough need in the secondary. Hamilton is a versatile enough player where you take him. Now we'll go to the second round. I like Jalen Petrie. And if the Vikings were to trade down, honestly, I would take Daxton Hill out of Michigan with the pick in the 20s over a Trent McDuffie. Maybe probably not Booth, but over Elam. I would say if we were to go like guys who could be there in the 20s in the secondary, Booth, Daxton Hill, Elam, McDuffie. And short arms, man, short arms. But Daxton Hill is someone who he played a lot of snaps in the slot, and he also is extremely good at switching coverage and passing guys off, which is key. I believe that's going to be key in the Donatel system. So if you have play like a man zone, man match kind of scheme, it's going to be huge. So yeah, I agree with you there, safeties. I love Leo Chenal. Love him for the Patriots. The reviews on him are all over the place. Some people say he's the best linebacker. Some people say he's not going to go until the 3rd round. And tight end, it's pretty weak class. I like Isaiah Likely because he's from Everett, Mass, local boy to me. I grew up right around there. So I would say you draft one of those guys if the talent differential, like again, Kyle Hamilton at 12, Leo Chenal, if like a lot of guys are off the board, I would take someone I would consider in the 2nd round. And then Trey McBride's not going to fall, but he said tight end. If Trey McBride's there at the beginning of the 3rd round and, let's say you traded back and you can trade back up to the 60s, and get Trey McBride, who's a good all-around tight end, that's where you do it. So I would not prioritize those positions. I don't think anyone prioritizes them in the first 3 rounds. But if you have a guy who has differentiated himself amongst his peers, and you feel it's almost like the pendulum swinging. The pendulum has swung so far against their position, and guys who normally would be top 5 picks are now teens, and guys who would be late first rounders are mid seconds. That's where you kind of fight back and say, okay, like this is good value, even though like these are good enough football players to where they still have value regardless of their position. So that's how I'll answer TJ's question. And thanks for asking. We really appreciate that on short notice with our new pod. Really, really appreciate it, guys. Yeah,
Absolutely.
this is again, it's a work in progress. We're gonna keep going. You know how it is. You got to build chemistry. You got to keep going. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
excited for the draft.
Yeah. We'll be back next week with thoughts after the draft. That should be fun to be able to talk about. Not after we know everything that goes down, it should be really fun to get to kind of dive in and talk about everything that happened throughout the draft and who got who and all that stuff. But yeah, we really appreciate all the questions coming in, and we'd love to continue that and continue to get more people asking stuff, because I think for me, I've done one other podcast before, that was always one of my favorite things to do, was to get questions from people who listen and get to ask that or answer those, just because you never know what kind of things people are going to ask, and they a lot of times bring up a lot of really good topics. So yeah, we'd love to, and we'd really appreciate to continue to get more responses on those posts. So continue to look out every probably close to every week at least to look for those posts. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them, and there's a good chance that we'll go ahead and answer those for you. But yeah, that's been the first episode of Analytically Bold. You can follow us on Twitter at Analytical Bold, because they won't allow us to put analytically because it's too long. And then you can find me at Jared Bars NFL. That's JaredBars NFL. And then you can find Joe at Real Joe Spinosa. So that's at RealJoeSpinosa.
Not
Yeah,
to be confused with the fake accounts, because people have
there's a
made
lot
fake
of them.
accounts. People have made fake accounts of me. So
Joe's got a lot of fans. I haven't gotten a fake account about me yet.
well, I don't think you have as many haters though.
That's fair
That's
enough.
the difference.
Yep, I only have a handful of those. People don't hate me as much as they hate Joe. But you know what? Yeah, I think it's because Joe speaks his mind, and people don't like it sometimes. But yeah, so that's been the first episode of Analytically Bold. Again, we really appreciate you tuning in, and we hope to see you next time.